and that kind of thing, because what was happening was, what I used to like to say was, I was always as good as the last 5 plays I'd read. And that was really, so it was a site for, for all of us at the organization to go, these are all the plays that actually we've been working on. And, anytime somebody would say, do you have plays, I just pull a site up,
So somehow all that effort will ultimately be integrated into this map, which is more of a visibility and connectivity function than it is that sort of exhaustive database of people who are out there doing things.
Yeah, Kristen, from here, I'm just wondering about a section of it that is like what this needs next, so that there's a place where people who are looking for new plays, or they're excited about a project, they say, oh God, they're looking for a 1-week residency. So what about something like that to extend to the next steps?
I wonder if there's a way to integrate like different writers' opportunities that the Playwright Center website has into the new play map. That's what I think of immediately. You know what I mean? Yeah.
All those opportunities. What do you think its values are? I mean, what do you think the value of it is actually? We should push towards. Stephen.
Well, I actually thought when you were
Stephen Earnhardt.
Stephen Earnhardt, director of Playwright. I actually thought it could be great ammunition to go to Equity, in terms of this whole issue about video, and say, look, this is exactly the reason why we need to be able to put, nobody's making money off of this. We're not selling these clips. This is exactly why we need to be able to have access to create these kind of possibilities and partnerships. I think it could be great ammunition for that. I also was just going to say that it might be useful to clarify what is, or to maybe open the conversation, what is a new play? What is like, I was confused, like, I have a play I've been working on for years, it was under the radar. Is it, we're trying to get the play to Edinburgh, which there's a perception that, oh, well, you must be set, that's all. I've never needed resources more in my life, so is that considered a new play? Is this version of Arabian Nights that's been restaged in the round, is that a new play? Like, I didn't know what a new play was. I'm using that as the extreme, but, it might just be, some people may not be as eager to put up things on there if they have the perception that it's not considered a new play.
Well, I think the language question is interesting, because I found when I was first putting stuff in there, and by the way, I think one of the uses of it, by the way, is that like what you did with Seven Devils up there on stage, which I thank you for, which is being able to track a journey of a play for us. That's huge, because it lets people know what we do. But when I started to put things in there, the idea of what we did, it didn't necessarily fit into all of the different names of what you would call, is it a reading, is it a workshop? And it's interesting, because I think, though, in spite of the fact that what I do did not quite fit in those names, it made me think about, well, maybe it will help define the language of nude play development, in that we have to start sort of finding ways to name, not necessarily define or box in, but to give a name to this entire journey that is a new play. That isn't just like, well, we did a reading and now it's a production and then we're done.
Oh, sorry, Brad.
I just thought that is exactly what I thought part of the value. There's lots of values, I think, but part of the value was being able to show to people who maybe are not as well informed as the 100 or so people who are in this journey really looks like, and both to funders and donors and people who might be interested in this, and you can tell them about it, but being able to actually see it as this play is bouncing around the country in different ways, and over a course of time too, the amount of years that went in to that development. So I think that to visually be able to show that story to people who can make a difference because they've got money, perhaps, or they've got influence, or also maybe like, gosh, why did it take so long? Is there a way sometimes to sort of to condense that process in some ways, as we're seeing, well, maybe that play needed 5 years, maybe it didn't, maybe it could have taken 18 months, and here's a way that we could have streamlined that process.
The other piece to that too, when you're working in, for example, development organizations and that kind of thing, one of the things that we experienced a lot at the Playwright Center was, and again, this is the difficulty of theater. Like, we were trying to figure out how we were relevant, and we were always trying to make that case. And the way that conversation started, many years ago when I started there was, if you produced a play that you developed at the Playwright Center, would you just put it on the program? Well, let me tell you, that seems easy, right? Try to get a big theater to put your name on a program. It's not actually an easy task. And so one of the things that we did, we started to have a lot of conversations as a community of play development organizations, and we actually started to, and then what play development organizations do is they start to try to take credit for things that actually they don't have credit for either, so because we're all trying to figure out how we matter. And so when we started to talk about plays as a group, we actually found that, like, we took I Am My Own Wife, I think, was a play that we took, and we said, well, it started here at Sundance, and then Doug Wright was at the Playwright Center, and then Doug Wright, and we realized that actually that play and Doug Wright had been in almost every one of our institutions, what the map does is actually show that in a way that helps us to see our piece of being relevant, and makes a kind of, almost it's truthful, I think, in that regard, a more truthful sort of, like how it really got here,
What beyond the map, although Michael, comment on the map if you'd like to, but also be thinking about these other things, like what's the value of an online journal dedicated to this activity, for example, Polly, or of the work that Playwright Center has done, and how do we build on top of that? That is an enormous amount of work that Playwright Center has put into there. And I know that there are people sitting out here who say, yes, and we have done this, and we need to put that on the table, we need to put that on the table. And we need to get a moment where we put on the table all the efforts that are underway, so that we can figure out how they come together, and we start to be able to be relevant and transparent to each other in the most effective manner, rather than, and this is a place of capturing abundance for me, rather than each of us having our own thing and then drowning under the attempt to maintain it. How do you build it? So I'm sorry.
That's okay. The thing that's on my mind is not the map part of what you've done, but the portal that you seem to be in the process of creating. And my mind is less thinking, I guess just because of what I do, about how it gives me access to know what's going on. But I'm actually, I think it's really interesting to think about the design of that as having a display function and also a connectivity function. So I'm thinking as an artist and an organizer of an institution about the connectivity potential. And I just want to raise, and tell me if I go too far afield, but I was just talking to Mark Russell a little bit.
Too far. Go. Good joke, Mark. You missed it.
Good joke. We were talking about the show that we saw last night and its relationship to documentation of performance and it becoming another thing, but still having a relationship to the thing that it is. And it made me think about On the Boards TV, that wonderful thing that started out there. But what I want to say is, as a part of an ensemble that right now is working on this sort of national project where we are attempting to figure out how to use the internet to create events that we invite communities around the country to participate in and create as a part of our engagement initiative, and then sort of synthesize that as a part of our artistic practice that's an ongoing part of our process, as well as a thing that lives online. I am intrigued with the possibility of the layers of the tool that you have developed to not just be a way for dissemination, and not just be a way for us to communicate, but actually a way potentially for us to practice in certain ways that expand our circles and bring our circles together in ways that people in other fields, like you probably, are already thinking about in very sophisticated ways, and we are trying to catch up, of course, because we need the tools to do what we do, but we also can use the tools to do things we can't yet do, want to do, and are imagining. And I'd like to see us leveraged into that conversation through this, rather than just use this to do what we sort of do. And I don't mean that's what you're saying. You've developed a portal for some very exciting work.
And even more, which I'm really thrilled about this, and I think this, I don't know whose role this is at the Mellon Foundation, but when you develop new technologies like this with the support of the Mellon Foundation, they have to be open source. And so this is actually available to many communities to adapt in whatever way they want to. We've already had interest from Russia and from New Zealand and from a Shakespeare organization that wants to map American Shakespeare. And I can see other adaptations of the base, maybe to performative adaptations and things, that are only going to help grow the whole user community. It's built on an open source piece of...
Is the-
code. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, is the data, is the raw data available? Is this sort of like, it's a great thing, and it's a great framework, so the portal to me is a framework for the data. But a question that I would have is the raw data available? Is this something that like somebody can create some kind of mashable site that actually links or looks at the work that's being created in context of political events happening across the country or in context of...
There's a meeting that just got set up in the course of all the little hubbub here with someone who's wanting to connect it to cultural economics analysis tools. And so that meeting will be happening next. And there's probably a bunch of uses like that. But so I don't know that we've made it yet an exportable data set, but I think that we're moving into version 2.0. And one of the things that we did do, just so you know that this isn't all just pie in the sky, even though it sounded like pie in the sky to begin with, it's not been and it isn't. There is a whole other contract that has been reserved for version 2.0, and that's going to be spec'd by the group of people in this room right now. We're going to throw the ideas on the table, and I'm going to ask people to help me prioritize it before we go into the next round of things. It seems like importing and exporting data, given the uses of the data and the existence of data in other places, are really sort of no-brainers at the top.
Two things. One thing is sort of in relation to what Eric is saying, in terms of if there is a way to if there is a way to track the audience that sees the people who come into contact with the work in its various stages, just as data. I don't know how you're going to track. Some parts you can track and some part you can't. But I keep thinking about. I think in a breakout session with Lisa Krohn, and she was saying we talk so much about like the artists and the institutions, and not the artists versus the audience with the audience. So that can be sort of like.
Where's the
data.
audience in this picture?
That's data that we can put and find and plug in. And then who actually plugs in the data? And who does the email get sent to?
So the way it works for everybody, if you go, the best way to do it, there's a cheat sheet for how to enter it this way. If you've never been there, pick a play that you are interested in the journey of, and then enter it as an event. So you enter it an event at a time. And there is a cheat sheet that will show you how to do this. You go in and you add an event, and if the organization that is involved in the event isn't in there already, it prompts you. Put in the name of a person we can contact and what's their email address. And when the record is saved, that email goes to that person who then now knows, oh, somebody just put me on something called the new play map, and if they click on it, they'll see this is what was entered. Well, maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. Maybe we only had the artistic director's name and we put that there, and immediately we want to change it to somebody else. Or we don't, depending on what the organization is. But whatever whoever the organization is gets alerted that they've just now been added. If they're already been added, then it'll pop up in the list. Then you put in the name of the play. If the play is already in there, it will come up. If it's not in there, you add it. And then it asks, whose play is this? And then that person gets an email saying, you've just been added to the map.
So if somebody adds something to the map, just say, me as under the radar, part of something, I add something. Does the email get sent to the leading organization and the generative artist?
Yep. Anytime a new record is added to the map, it asks you for a name of either the contact person at the organization or if it's the artist, it's the artist.